Graduates from Taylor, Texas have been soaring to great heights for a very long time. And students today are already making their mark in the world long before graduation. Taylor is full of history, tradition, and an amazing community that supports its future leaders. With all the programs and opportunities available to students today, graduates from Taylor, Texas are soaring higher now than ever before. Adam Sanchez is a lifelong resident of Taylor, Texas, but at the age of 11, his calm small-town life suddenly changed. He and his younger sister ended up in central Mexico, suffering extensive abuse and exposure to illegal activities, until Adam couldn't take it any longer and made his escape all the way back to Taylor, Texas. Adam began working with law enforcement, including the FBI, to locate his sister and bring her home. In March of 1992, FBI Director William Sessions came to Taylor to present the young hero with an award for his bravery. A powerful example of turning adversity into something positive, Adam went on to earn his bachelor's degree and is nearing completion on his master's. He frequently speaks to youth groups, sharing his story and letting them know that they too can overcome great obstacles to achieve success.
My name is Adam, and I'm here today because I'm going to share a couple stories with you guys that I went through when I was younger. This story happened when I was between 10 and 11 and 12 years old, and my sister was between the ages of 5 and 7, all right? So as I'm telling y'all this story, I want y'all to think about a couple things. I want y'all to think about the decisions you make on a daily basis and how those decisions affect our life and the way our life is going and the direction our life is going, okay?
Our guest today is lifelong Taylor resident Adam Sanchez. Adam has an amazing story of survival and success that he often shares with youth groups around Taylor. And he is here today to share that story with us. Adam, welcome, and thank you for being here today.
Thank you for having me, Mr. Crow.
At a young age, you and your even younger sister found yourselves in a very dangerous situation. You were taken from your home, away from your family, friends, really away from everything that was familiar to you. And then you were forced to make some pretty grown-up decisions.
Yes, sir.
Before we get into the details of that traumatic experience, I'd like to find out what life was like before all of this happened. So if you could, tell us a little bit about those earlier days before things changed so drastically.
Okay, yeah. So born and raised here in Taylor. Went to school here for kindergarten and first grade, and then did my elementary school from 2nd to 5th at T.H. Johnson. So growing up, knew everybody. It was a smaller community back then. So growing up as a kid was awesome. Going out with friends during the summer, riding bikes. 'Cause I had tons of friends that just lived down the street, so we'll meet up and play football at somebody's house in the street. Go to the swimming pool here, the old swimming pool, right? And it was just great. I lived right across. So I was looking at your picture earlier. It's like I live right across the street from the Kolache shop.
Oh, is that right?
So yeah, so it was, they're the best donuts around.
Oh,
so
aren't they,
I would be there. I would go every morning, or on Saturday mornings, and then after schools on Monday, I'll go and just see what I can get for a few bucks, because they would sell the day old stuff. So I usually walking across the street with like a cake and 12 pack of donuts. So it was great. Yeah.
So a typical happy childhood.
Absolutely, yes, sir.
And you were especially close with your grandfather and with your aunt. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. Yeah. So so all of our family was here in Taylor. So. It was my great-grandmother's house, and then my aunt, so her daughter, and then my grandpa. So my grandpa actually lived in Thrall, so I lived, at the time, my mom, my sister, and we all lived with my aunt there on 4th Street. So, yeah.
And so this was home?
Yes, sir. It was home.
And then in 1990, a stepfather entered the picture.
Yep.
And things changed.
Yeah, yeah.
What happened?
So when I was in the 5th grade, my mom wasn't around a lot, like I said. So my aunt raised me. The last day of my 5th grade year, my mom showed up and said, you know what, it's time for you and your sister to come move in with me. So at one point we were kind of sad, right? We're leaving Taylor, we're leaving our friends and our family, but at the same time we're excited because we get to go live with our mom now. So we moved to East Austin. So during this time, the reason why she was gone, she had met a boyfriend. She had a friend, a boyfriend, husband, whatever you want to call it. For this story, we're going to call him that guy, okay? Because I don't like saying his name, and I really don't like hearing his name. So we're going to just say, when I say that guy, you know who I'm talking about. So anyway, she was been with this guy, and he had her away from us. So at the end of the 5th grade year, we moved in with her and this guy. Pretty much from the start, it was rough, right? He was very abusive. So when I was probably in 4th grade, 5th grade, my mom started seeing this guy. And so she would start, it started off maybe on the weekends, but then it started becoming longer periods of time to where she would leave my sister and myself with my aunt. So eventually it got to where it was, weeks, months at a time that she would be gone. So when I finished my 5th grade here, so almost at the last day of my 5th grade here, we had the graduation ceremony, of course, but I didn't go because, my mom came to pick us up and said, okay, it's time to come with her. And like I mentioned a lot of my speeches, I said, on one side I was happy to go live with my mom, but then on the other side I was sad because Taylor was home. Everything I knew was here in Taylor, my friends, family. So it was a change at that point. So we actually moved to Austin that summer. We're living in Austin, and that's kind of like where everything began. This guy just didn't like my sister and myself, so he had some issues, right? So he'd go out drinking a lot, and he ended up being very abusive. So almost nightly, he'd come home drunk and just, well on us. Beating started with just the belt, right? Turned into rolling up the belt and just the buckle hanging out and beating us with that. And so that's first summer, it was kind of nightly things like that.
Totally different from the life you'd been used to.
Oh yeah, it was just something we never experienced. So it was just, it was horrible, right? Especially for my sister. She was younger than me.
How old was she at that time?
So she was 5 years younger than me. So 5th grade, we were about 10, so she would have been about 5. Pretty much from the start, it was rough, right? He was very abusive. Every night almost he would go out drinking, come home drunk, and find some reason to beat my sister and myself. For whatever reason it was. Whether we were ugly, we were too light-skinned, it didn't matter. We weren't his kids, so he was very abusive. I remember one time he came home in the middle of the day, he was drunk. He made me go lay in the dirt on an ant pile and so I can get some sun. And if I would cry, guess what? Continue to get beat. So this happened all summer long. Another example, even to this day, he would make me drink jalapeno juice just because for him it was fun. I didn't like it. To this day, I can't eat or smell jalapenos. It just makes me sick. Something wasn't going how he expected. And so we're light-skinned, right? My sister and I, we're light-skinned. He didn't like that. Lather us up in baby oil and go sit outside in the sun, the get color, right? He'd be mad. He'll come home and he'd get mad, get upset. Where we lived, there were a lot of ant piles. So it just make us go lay in the dirt. And
on those ant piles?
On those ant piles, yes, sir.
Where you would get stung?
It gets stung, and had it later, because if we got up, it would do a different type of beating, And that's just how it was. I remember a few times where we would cook something and whatever was left on our plate, we throw it away. So he came home one night just drunk and saw food in the trash, and I don't know what was going through his mind, but like, who did this? And like, I did. Get it out and eat it. So I didn't want to do it, but it was just him with the belt, like, you better do it. So there I go, eating whatever was left on my plate that I had thrown in the trash, eating it.
And at 10 years old, you probably felt like you had no choice.
Yes, it's exactly how I felt. And there was different types of abuse like that throughout that whole first summer. And I say that first summer, so like I said, my mom picked us up in my 5th grade year. And that went on throughout that summer, because at the end of the summer, we actually came back to live with my aunt for a while. He had some other illegal activities going on that was part of what he did, right? So they had during this time he had, let's call it a trip, right? So he had a plan to go to Mexico, do what he had to do, and come back to the United States. So they did that, and that's why my sister and I went to go live with my aunt. When they came back a few months later, we ended up going back to Austin, but to a different area than where we were before. This was actually on the east side of Austin, and that's where we actually enrolled in school at. It was weird because it was all this up to 8th grade in one school because my sister was there also. And it was right around the corner from where we lived, so it was even easier for us to get to school. I think it was called L.L. Campbell Elementary. It was off Chacon, I believe. But that's where we went to school for a few months there. So while we were in Austin, everything that happened over the summer continued. Continued the beatings every night. He'd come home drunk, and same story. So one night, nobody showed up. He was gone, my mom was gone, it was just my sister and myself living in Austin. Remember I told you how old we were, right? I was in the 6th grade, just started the 6th grade. My sister was in 1st grade. So it was just us two living in East Austin by ourselves. So what had happened was this guy was involved in illegal activities. So they had gotten in trouble with the cops. Since my mom was involved with them, she got arrested and put in jail. He booked town and went to Mexico. So for 2 months, my sister and I lived by ourselves in Austin. Around the middle of October, so this happened at the beginning of October. Middle of October, lights get turned off at the house. So it's just me and my little sister. We get up and go to school because we knew we could eat at school. So when I say he was planning his trip, so somewhere around, I'm gonna say early October, mid-October, him and my mom went on this trip and nobody came back, all right? So
and you and your sister are in Austin?
We were in Austin at this house, yes, sir.
By yourselves? By
ourselves, yeah. So he did have a brother and sister that lived in Austin. We actually had 2 brothers and a sister that lived in Austin, but nowhere where we were. We lived in East Austin. He had one that lived in Northwest Austin and one that lived almost in Pflugerville. So yeah, so my sister and I, we were there by ourselves. Nobody showed up. Ended up trying to call everybody I knew to figure out, how do I get hold of these people. So I found a phone number to where they lived in Mexico, thinking they went to Mexico. But at that time, I did not know that it was just like here, right? Each state or each area had its own area code, and I just had the 7 digits. I had no idea what state they're in, so that didn't work out well. So then found out from one of his brothers that he had went back to Mexico, and my mom had gotten in trouble. So it was just kind of me and my sister for a month and a half living there by ourselves. Just make sure we get up and go to school, make it to school, eat, come home. About once a week, one of his brothers would bring us dinner or food, and we'd store it. We'd have something to eat. And they would check on us, every now and then, like I said, maybe once a week or so.
So basically, you were on your own?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I remember this clearly because it was Halloween night. I don't know exactly when it happened, but sometime between when they left to Halloween night, the lights had got turned off. So we were there kind of like without electricity. And it was tough. Just at one point, being a kid, wanted to go out do the Halloween thing, but the other point, like, go home, it's dark, So we had to be careful what we did. So we continued living like that for another month or so. I'll say somewhere in November, right before Thanksgiving break. His sister came to pick us up, took us to live with her, and I think it was in Pflugerville. She actually tried to enroll us in school, but since she wasn't a legal guardian,
couldn't do it.
With 2 kids, I mean, as far as they're concerned, she kidnapped 2 kids, right? Because she didn't have we didn't have any relationship, so they couldn't enroll us in school. So we kind of, from that point, I guess the first half of my 5th grade year, my sister's 1st grade year, we went to school after that. We kind of left school because in December, it was a Mexican family, so they would go to Mexico to visit their family for Christmas. We went with them, and we ended up staying in Mexico.
And that's where your mom was?
Well, eventually she met us there.
She met you?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So I see probably the dates, times are, kind of blurry for trying to remember, but I think it was maybe around the April, May time frame is when she came back to live with us in Mexico. My sister and I already had been there since December. And It was just, for us, it was scary because we did not know anybody there. We only knew that guy.
You'd never been there before?
Never been there before. And it's not like it was the border, right? It was like central Mexico is where we went. And it was
very different.
Very different. Culture shock, right? Nobody spoke English, so I always understood Spanish. I just never could, speak it because my aunts and my grandpa and my grandmother, they understood Spanish and they understood English. So I would talk to them in English and they would respond to me in Spanish, and that's how we communicated. So I really never had to learn how to speak Spanish. So, but once I got put in the episode, I was like, okay,
you had to.
I had to learn quick. I knew the words. I never practiced using them. So I learned real quick to talk in Spanish to get around. It's tough, right? Because on one point we were living that life, but on another point, we were living a life of abuse, and when we got there, everything was the same. Every night, something different.
Nothing had changed.
Nothing had changed, no sir. But on the other side, it's just different experiences that we got of being in Mexico that weren't all horrible, right? A lot of the people there were nice. The food was great. Just authentic food. I felt, and I still enjoy today being there. I would go do like the grocery runs, right? But it wasn't like your grocery store. Everything was open market, right? So I would just going out there, instead of ordering, I want a pound of tortillas, like I need 2 kilos of tortillas. Things like that, right? Just give me a different perspective on where I was here to that quick change around 6 months later of how I had to grow up, like you mentioned earlier, just grow up quick. And I think actually that helped me down the road over the next few months make some difficult decisions. It's just having a different mindset, coming from where I was here to that point, and just the things I have learned in addition to the horrible experiences of just the different types of abuse that we went through.
So as time went on, while you were there, things sort of escalated, is
yes,
that
sir.
right?
Yeah, absolutely. It was, I said, they went from, the belt buckle to a few times just straight up a closed fist to the face. Whatever he can get his hands on. And that was just the escalation of just his excessive drinking, coming home drunk. It was like, so where they lived, it was just probably about an acre, so each family member had their own little house. And they had a gate on the end, little gate tied together with poles and barbed wire. So we'll be asleep in the house, he'll come home honking at 2, 3 in the morning. If I didn't make it out to that gate to open it up quick enough, I knew what was coming. So it was just every night, it felt good that he was leaving because we didn't have to be with him, but just knowing that he was coming back and something was going to happen. Yeah. Like that continued for a while. So then my mom came back and they started planning another trip, right? Of what he did illegally. And his job was to, from Mexico, come to the U.S., travel to Florida, then make his way back to plan this other trip. So that was kind of like the first time we went with him. Just experiencing all that, just knowing what was going on, figuring out what was going on. For example, we went to the border, stayed the night in Piedras Negras. He did what he had to do, had me do some errands for him, came to the U.S., got to Austin. We would stay there for about a few weeks, three weeks to a month. Then we go to Florida. When we got to Florida the first time, that's where things really got out of control. The first night we got there, he was upset. Don't know what had happened in his mind. A little graphic here. So we get out, go into this little this Roach Coach motel. We're in there. He's beating my mom. I come in, he starts beating me. And next thing you know, he hands me a handgun, like, load this up. I never held a handgun at that point, so I don't know what to do. He grabs the handgun away from me, bops me over the head. I fall on the bed, bleeding out. Then he gets mad, throws me on the floor because I'm bleeding on the bed. So he puts his foot on my throat and starts choking me out. I passed out. I just remember I just remember somebody hearing, Adam, get up, Adam, get up. I wake up. Don't know how long I've been out, but just blood everywhere and same things going on. Anyway, so we were probably in Florida for about 2 weeks, and every night was something different, just horrible. From going to where he would go to deliver his, what he had to deliver. On the way home, it's like, you know, get out of the van. I want you to run behind the van. Middle of the night, middle of these sugarcane fields in Hempstead, Florida.
And you were following on foot?
Yeah, no, I was running. Running,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. See, like,
trying to keep up.
Yeah, he said, keep up. So there we go, just chasing the truck. And finally, after about 2 weeks of that, different things, we come home. Well, we come back to Austin, go back to Mexico. Everything continues. Same things over and over. It doesn't change. But this time, I guess I'm about a year older, so I start getting included in a lot of the planning and whole process of what he's doing.
His activities.
Yes, sir.
He was involving you more in.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So, for example, when I would keep dates, I would know what dates, what was happening on what dates, know about all the transactions that were going on. I knew which routes he would take, just not exactly the routes, but just we're going from this city to this city, which also is helpful later down the road. So after a few more months of this, one night he invites me with the guys to go out to town to a party, right? So one night he included me with the guys, right? So we go out with his cousins, and we go downtown. It was a little town in Mexico. We go downtown. He's getting drunk, spends all his money. Says, Adam, I need you to go back to the house and get some money. I said, okay. So I was 11. Got in the truck, drove to the house, got money, went back to the party. So here's the key point, guys. I never gave him the money, okay? So after the party's over, we're driving home. I'm in the pickup. He tells me, you know what? When we get home, I'm gonna beat the you know what out of you. At that point, I said I had enough. Jumped out the truck and took off running. I was really scared that it was gonna.
Because things were only getting worse.
Yes, sir.
And you didn't know what was next.
No, things that had built up to this, he had started getting just acting different, just a little more violent. There were times where he actually shot at people from his house. So all this is going in my mind, so I just jump out the truck and take off running. At that time, I didn't know where I was going to go. I just know how to get to the bus station the next morning. But that night, I had no idea what to do. So I just take off running, cross, kind of away from where he lived, laying in the ditch. Just okay, it's a good place. I can.
That's where you plan to spend the night.
Yes, sir. I was like, I can stay here for the night. Person that I knew that knew me, he's like, no, he saw me. He's like, you're not going to do this. So I started explaining and telling everything was going on. He's like, it's going to be all right. Just come lay with me. I'm coming over to the house. You can sleep on the floor. So did that. His family was there. So they were very nice. Woke up the next morning, like, you have to go home. I know what you told me last night, but everything's going to be okay. But I said, okay, but I just had in my mind I couldn't do that.
You knew it wasn't going to get any better.
Yes, sir. So I went to the bus station in town, just a small bus station. So I need a ticket to Mexico City. So no problem. Got the ticket to Mexico City.
And they sold that ticket to you?
Yes, sir. That one right there was not an issue. They just a simple transaction. Got on the bus. It was probably about a 2-hour drive to Mexico City from where we were. While I'm on the bus, looking out the window and seeing my mom driving around the town square.
So she was looking for you?
She was looking for me. I just, I had like I mentioned, when I do my speech at Midnight Basketball, so I had a choice to make. I can let her know that I'm here. It's going to be okay. But I also knew that if I did that, she wouldn't want me to leave her, just because she was probably afraid that something would happen to me. Worse than what was happening to me, so she didn't want me to leave. I'm on the bus looking out the window. I see my mom driving around the town square looking for me. So I had to make a decision. Do I tell her I'm on the bus Then knowing that if I told her I was on the bus, she was gonna come get me off the bus and make me stay. Or do I just hold it in and just go? So I held it in and I left. One of the hardest decisions I ever had to make. I was crying. Because I was leaving my mom and my little sister in Mexico. And I didn't know if I would see them again.
And you were how old at that point?
Probably about 11.
About 11 years old. So 11 years old, and you're sitting on this bus, making an escape from this life that you've been thrust into, and you see your mom outside.
Yes, sir.
What was going through your 11-year-old mind having to make that kind of a decision?
Lots of tears were coming out. Like I said, I knew that if I would tell her, she would put me off the bus, and I wanted to leave.
And you were faced with that decision of not letting her know you were there so that you could make that escape and hopefully make things better eventually.
Yes, yeah. So I did not let her know. So I just cried my...
So you saw her out there and stayed on the bus, and it pulled away to take you away from that situation. So what happened next?
So I'm on my way to Mexico City on this bus. No idea what's going to happen, but I know my plan was to get to Mexico City. I can get a ticket from there to Laredo. And I know Laredo, I can cross over and like I mentioned, it's funny because I knew that Laredo, I-35 ends in Laredo. I-35 goes through Austin. Straight shot, I can walk. You know,
there was a lot of thinking and planning that went into that.
Well, that was like my first reaction. I can do this. You know, I can get home.
So you were determined.
I just got to get there. Yes, sir. So when I get to Mexico City, I get off the bus, and I have enough cash. So everything works out for a reason. It worked out that time perfectly because I had just enough money to buy my ticket to Laredo. Mexico City is like the biggest city in the world, right? I get off the bus. Go up to the ticket counter and say, hey, I need a ticket to Laredo, the Mexican side of Laredo. And they look at me. I'm 11 years old, trying to buy a ticket across the country. They said, no, it's not going to happen. So I turn around, some random lady there. I say, you know what, that's my mom. She forgot to buy me a ticket. So they sold me the ticket. Got on the bus, went to Laredo. She just forgot to buy my ticket, and they sold it to me. So I think I got back couple thousand pesos back, which was probably about $1. So bought me a drink and a sweetbread and made my way to Laredo. Got on the bus, and that was probably about a good 24-hour drive from Mexico City to Laredo. So now I'm in Laredo, get off. Only been through it driving, so I get off. I'm like, okay, I need to get to the border. Looking around and see a lot of the trolleys that say frontera or the border. So I was like, cool, I got to get on one of those. I didn't have any more money, so I asked people for some change to get on the trolley that took me to the border. Got to the bridge, walked across the bridge, and told the guy working, the immigration officer working, said, I was born in the United States. He said, keep on going. I said, all right. So I knew at that point something was going right. So my plan was to walk all the way home, Austin. I knew I-35 connected Laredo to Austin. I can go straight down that highway. But after walking a few miles and still in the city, I was like, that's not going to work. When I got to the border, I just walked across, and I didn't have anything but the clothes I had on. No paperwork, no identification, nothing. I was 11 years old. So I get to the border agent, and it's like, I was born in the United States. Go ahead.
No problem.
No problem. He just said, just keep on.
Everything is falling into place now, isn't it?
So I saw a bus station there. It was a Greyhound bus station. Walked in and said, if I had somebody buy me a ticket, can I get to Austin? They said, yes. I said, all right. So I got on the payphone, made a collect call to my aunt here in Taylor, and told her what was going on. She bought me the ticket. They said, Adam, your ticket's here. Got on the bus, came to Austin. They picked me up in Austin, brought me to Taylor. So as soon as we got to Taylor, my grandpa took me to the police station to talk to Chief Bankston at the time. Got picked up and brought back to Taylor.
How did that feel to be on your way back to Taylor?
It was relief, you know, but at the same time, it still was painful knowing that. And
a lot of worry, too, I'm
yes,
sure.
Sir, that I had left so much back with my mom and my sister, and just you know, it was tough for me still.
Right.
So my first reaction was, you know, with my grandpa, like, we gotta do something. We gotta get them back. We gotta figure something out. We gotta get them back. So he, I think it was Chief Bingston, was the chief of police here in Taylor.
Chief Stafford Bingston.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yes, sir. So got to know him very well. We went to him first and told him the whole story, what was going on, what was happening. He's like, okay. So he made some calls. So we wanted to get my family back together. So we told Mr. Bingston everything that happened, where we were, all the illegal activities going on. So remember, I told y'all that I was more involved now. The last time where I was counting money, keeping dates, knowing addresses, so I knew where they were going to be and when they were going to be, which comes in handy because about a few weeks later, the FBI shows up at my aunt's house asking me who it was, who was I, where was it going on, what was happening, and when it was going to happen. A few weeks later, they get a call that they got my sister. They're bringing her home, right? So at that time, he was doing one of his trips. So he was coming to Austin. Since I told the FBI where they were going to be, the FBI showed up and busted him. Well, they didn't bust him. He got away again. They busted his sister, his brother-in-law, and unfortunately my mom, because she was there. So my mom ended up going to jail. But we had my sister back, and my mom was away from all that danger. Next thing I know, we're working with the FBI, the U.S. Embassy in Mexico.
So all these authorities
Yes,
are
sir.
involved now?
Yes, sir. So we have everybody involved.
And you're working with them to help solve this problem?
Well, yeah, I'm giving them all the information of, you know, from the town that we were in, kind of what town we were in, where they lived in the town, who was involved. FBI shows up while, you know, a little later down the road, a couple weeks, with a photo album and says, can you point them out? And they had pictures of them, you know, because they had been in trouble before. So I was like, yeah, you know, that's who's involved. So I want to say it took maybe 2-3 weeks for them to locate my sister. And they just pretty much just grabbed her and brought her over.
Oh, did they?
Yes, sir.
So they were able to get
Yes,
her
sir.
and bring her back to Taylor.
Yeah.
Now, during that time, though, before she got back to Taylor and you were working with police, it looks like your safety might have still been in danger because of you working with the police
Yes.
and giving them this information. Were there any measures in place to help protect you?
So it freaked my aunt and my grandpa out. After a few weeks here, they started receiving phone calls from them, asking us, hey, is Adam there? Is Adam there? Like, no, what are you talking about? So that did scare them. So actually, I did go live with my grandpa in Thrall for a few weeks, just to kind of just
away from where they would expect to see you.
Just kind of hiding out, not going anywhere, just to make sure I'm out of sight, out of mind, because they probably knew that I had left, but they didn't really know. But during all this time, like I said, they were planning their trip, right? This illegal activity trip. So me working with them earlier, getting all the dates and all the addresses, I knew the dates of where they were going to be. So I told the authority, I said, look, they're going to be at this address in Austin on these dates.
Well, that's exactly what they needed.
Yes, and here's what they're doing. So yeah, they ended up making a bus there and busting everybody there, the sister, the brother-in-law. Somehow this guy still evaded everything and didn't get caught. But
until then?
Even then.
Even then?
He did not get caught, no. I don't know how he did not get
Wow.
caught. But yes, they got in trouble and they got arrested. It was I'm always searching for it was actually there was video of it on the news of that happening, and then us meeting my sister at the airport.
So tell me about that. She came back by plane, is that right?
Yes, yes.
And so tell me about that reunion.
Well, little story before that. So I think it was around Christmas time we had a family get together, and it was close to when she was going to come back. So I walked into my cousin's house and I looked at one of our younger cousins who just really resembles my sister, and I was like, it wasn't her, but yeah. So we ended up going to the airport, and she was escorted by a U.S. Marshal on the airplane. They brought her over, and it was good to have her back home. It was great just to see her, get her home.
So your Taylor family must have all been there, and just a big reunion.
For the most part, yes.
Happy to see each other. And she must have been so glad to be home.
Yeah, I mean, I can't. I'm sure she was, but she was still so young. She was 6, 7 years old.
Right.
She was still, you know, probably trying to process everything. But yeah, she was. It was good for all of us to be back together again, and kind of reunited with our family, but then restarting our lives again here. So.
And then after that was all over, and you're back home, and your sister's back home, then at some point the FBI came back to visit you, didn't they?
But at that time, I guess it was something, it was a big deal, because they had the director at FBI come to Taylor and give me an award for it. Still today, I don't think it was a big deal, because I just wanted my family together again. But I guess because I was so young and that happened. So with those decisions I made, they weren't easy decisions. Not everything worked out perfect, but they were hard decisions that had to be made. Sometimes, guys, you know, as we're living life, we got to think about the big picture and think about what's happening. Even though that decision at that point may be hard, something small may happen that's kind of bad, but at the end of the day, the bigger picture is going to be better for everybody. So we got to think about when we're making those decisions. Think about everything, not just right then and there. What are we doing? I was in, I want to say I was in the 6th grade. We're 6th or 7th grade. Got this note, hey, we're going to have this award for you. I said, all right. So we ended up going to the Chamber of Commerce, and it's, I'm clueless to the whole thing, right? So it was the director of FBI, William S. Sessions. He's there. He's given me a award for what I have provided for them, how I helped them. I mean, I'm really clueless to who he was or what he stood for, but he came to Taylor and delivered an award to me for what I have done to get my sister back and the information I provided to them.
So at any point at that young age, because that would be something that you just wouldn't be used to, FBI and the director and everything, did you at some point realize what a significant event that was, that they came back to Taylor for you?
Still not really, no. No, it never really sank in that I was like, no, it's like the FBI's here. I'm working with the FBI. It really never came across like that.
But that signifies how important your help was
to
them in solving this and to getting your sister back here.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
It was, yeah, now that I look back, like, that was
awesome. A big deal.
Yeah, it was, but at that time, like I mentioned, it was, you know, I was a little 7th grade, hard-headed teenager, right? Like, oh, cool.
Probably wanted to play football and
yeah,
a few other things.
You know, and so yeah, it was awesome that they took their time to come do that.
So that must have been in the news.
It was, yes, sir. Yeah. Yes, sir. That was also in the news, and I think my friends kind of made fun of me after that. It's like, because they gave me an award, and I think it was somewhere around, like, what are you going to do with an award? And I think I just, you know, hang it on the wall or something. I didn't have a good answer for it, but then the friends after that kind of mocked me, like, oh, you could just hang it on your wall.
So do you still have that? Do you have any of the news clippings or anything like that?
I had some of the old news clippings. The award is misplaced with some of my aunt's stuff somewhere. But yeah, and they also gave me an FBI hat, which was pretty cool. And actually for probably a year after that, I would write, the 2 FBI agents that I worked with were kind of like pen pals. So we would write letters to each other, kind of like to keep in touch of what's going
really
on.
Nice.
So that was cool.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, during this whole process, your education was interrupted, your life here was interrupted, everything was sort of put on hold until all of that was resolved and you were able to come back home and sort of resume life like it used to be. Would you say that you were able to get back to life as normal after that?
Yes, eventually I did. To be honest with you, I think dealing with the the money and things that I dealt for him, and like I said, being in Mexico and looking at kilos and ordering things, and kind of gave me a different view of math. So when I came here, math was, everything just worked, and I was able to pick it up right away. Because I believe when I came back, there was 2 months left in the 6th grade year. So they kind of gave me tests to kind of see where I was, but they did not hold my sister right back. They just let us continue, getting those 6 and going to the 7th grade. I think the 6th grade year was kind of was a lot of us just getting used to being back. And
well, you must have had a tremendous support system.
I did.
To help get back into life as it used to
Yes,
be.
sir.
Tell us a little bit about that support system and how that helped.
Well, the biggest support that we received was from my aunt. Or actually, it's my grandpa's sister. We call her my aunt, but she's like my great aunt. She raised us for the times that my mom wasn't able to be there, or she was not there, and she raised us from that point. Took us in as her own. She had just the biggest heart. Anything we needed, she didn't have a lot of money, but anything we needed, she'd make sure she'd see what she could do to make sure we had school clothes or whatever it was for us to get to school.
Saw that you were taken care of.
Yes, sir. I needed her to sign something for school. She's like, "What is it?" So I would read it to her and say, "Okay, I'll sign it." But she made sure that we would go to school and do good in school and not get in trouble.
And then was there a support system at school for you as well?
Yes, there was. So when we came back in the 6th grade, I actually worked with Miss Peterson. She was my counselor at the time, and she would just pull me out of class. When they first introduced me to her, she'd pull me out of class and just talk to me. You know, how are things going? How are you doing? Just making sure that I was, just coming in and being able to get back into the swing of things. And she would always check up on me, even up until the 8th grade. Every time she would just make sure I was on the right track.
It helps to have someone to talk to.
Absolutely, it does. And I remember sometimes going in for 45 minutes, an hour, just talking about the different problems I was having, because I mentioned it before, I pretty much disappeared for a year and a half or 2. As far as mindset of where kids were at that point, I was still 2 years behind. So everything had changed, from style to clothing to music, everything had changed. So I'm still trying to live, what I did 2 years ago as far as clothes style and everything, and I was in 5th grade, so I didn't have much
Everyone
style.
else had moved on.
Right, exactly. So she just helped me the way kids talked at the time. So everything had changed, so she kind of helped me get accustomed to everything. So that was a lot of help. The friends that I had before I left, they're still there, right? So still have these relationships that that helped out a lot also. It's just being able to come in and start talking to somebody right away. And just if it's, you see the game last night, I'm like, what game? But still, all that helped get back into the swing of things.
Good. Well, how do you think this whole experience impacted the person that you are today?
So I get this question a lot. It's like, if I would be able to change anything that I lived through, and actually my answer is no. I think that everything I lived through has helped make me who I am today. From the type of father that I try to be, to just the type of person in general that I try to be. When I say type of fathers, I know how not to treat children. So I tell myself, like, I'm not going to be that person. So that was a great example of what not to do. Seeing many great father figures here, especially my wife's family, that I can take the good things from and learn how to be a good father from them. As far as being a good person, this is the same, just noticing how he treated people. Me dealing with different people, being a stranger, being accepted by different people just helped me be more accepting of people, and just, in general, just treat people good. My aunt, she was probably the biggest influencer on that. Is no matter what, you always like the golden rule: treat people how you want to be treated. If somebody would do her wrong, I'll tell her, "Why did you let him do that?" She goes, "Just it's not for me to judge them. You know, I'm gonna do my best and always be a good person. So that little comment that she would always tell me is really stuck in my head, and that's what I try to. I'm not perfect at that, but I try to do that as much as I can.
An important lesson.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Well, tell us about your life now.
So now it's great. Been married. Been with Melissa and I started dating in 1996. We got married in 2000, or 90. Sorry, we got married in 1999. We've been together since. Since then, we've grown and have this wonderful family. And it's great. So my daughter, she's 19. I have a soon-to-be 10-year-old son and my 6-year-old daughter. And it's just great.
Did you and Melissa know each other as kids back when this was going on?
No, we did not meet until middle school when I came back. Yes, sir. I think it was the 7th grade we officially met. And I always laugh at her. Like, she turned me down the first time I asked her to, she wanted to date back in 7th, 8th grade. So I always kind of throw that at her. Like, you turned me down, remember that? But we were good friends. We had created this good friendship before we started actually dating. So it was good. And it's funny. During that time when I came back, probably 8th grade year, I started going, a little sideways as far as the way I acted and who I hung around with and the things I did. But her parents always welcomed me into their house. And I always tell her, like, I don't know how your parents allowed me in their house, knowing the kind of person that I was, little hard-headed teenager doing, I was just being bad. But they just same lesson, just being retaught to me. It's like, have patience with people and
see the good.
Just treat them right. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, 8th grade. No, actually, I think it was 9th grade we started dating. Yeah.
And the rest is history.
The rest is history, yes, sir. The second story I got for you guys is kind of when I made some bad decisions. So at this time, I'm in high school here in Taylor. And started hanging around a group of friends that, all we like to do was go out, party, and not go to school. So do that for long enough, you start thinking different, right? You're not thinking like how Adam should think. So I ended up dropping out of high school in the 10th grade. Got my GED thanks to this girl that I was dating at the time. So my wife was my girlfriend in high school, right? So she said, you know what, you're not gonna just quit, you gotta go get your GED. And I said, yes, ma'am. So anyways, once I got my GED, I had people who really cared about me in the school system, right? And you do also now, you just don't know it. But she made sure that I just didn't get my GED. She set me up with the programs where I can go to a trade school, learn how to become a mechanic for free. And I got paid to do that. So she helped me get to that. So once I did that, finished the trade school, I worked as a mechanic for 3 years. Then I had an opportunity to go work at Dell Computers. Didn't know how to use a computer, but I said, why not? So I went to go work for Dell Computers for about 3 years, and then it's about the year 2000, then my daughter was born. Once she was born, I said, you know what, it's not good enough. I want more, I need more for my family. So I started taking the classes at ACC. And after 13 years, I graduated with my bachelor's from Texas State. And so now I'm working on my master's. But the reason why I say that is those decisions I made, they kind of put me on a detour of where I was going, right? So it took me a lot longer to get to where I wanted to because of the decisions I made, but I still got there. So even if you make a bad decision, guys, you make a bad choice, don't let it define who you're gonna be, okay? What you do with that decision, what you do after is who you are, right? You make the best of it. You figure out what I did wrong. How can I do better next time when I'm put in that same situation, right? So I mentioned earlier about having people that care about you in the school system. So I had a few people that really watched out for me. My first one was my middle school counselor, Miss Peterson. She did so much for me, she doesn't even know what she did for me. She would pull me out of class just to talk to me and see how I was doing. Having somebody to talk to was great for me at that point, because I had just come back from Mexico after being gone for almost 2 years of not going to school and starting all over in the 6th grade. So I lost all that time. It's like I disappeared from the earth and then come back. Music's different, people are different, except me. I was still stuck a few years back. So she helped me get over that. Miss Gardner, she helped me find so many programs for me to continue to succeed and build upon my strengths. And then another one is my mentor. When I was in middle school, I had a mentor. His name was Officer Carmona. Even till today, I still see him. We catch up. I let him know how I'm doing. And he still gives me advice, and I listen to it today. All these people gave me advice when I was in middle school and in high school, but I didn't listen because I was hard-headed. I knew better. But now looking back, they knew better. You know, they're telling you from experience of, you know, how things are going on. So we just have to listen and just try to do our best.
Well, Adam, this is an incredible story, an incredible journey. Has anyone ever told you you need to write a book?
A few times, yeah. A few times, yeah. So I'm working on it.
All
you know,
right.
it's just like I said, every night was something else. So it's just me getting down and writing each one of these stories just writing them down and having someone put them together for me.
Well, it really is an incredible story. And I have something for you as we close out our interview today. I went down and looked at the archives at the Taylor Press, and I found a couple of stories that I wanted to include in our interview, and then I had them framed, and so these are for you.
Awesome.
The first one is called Escape, and it tells all about the story, and there's a picture of you and your sister and your grandfather. Yeah. And so that tells that whole story. And then the other one is the FBI story.
Yes.
And there you are with the cap, the FBI cap. And so this tells that whole story.
Yeah, that was, that's it. That's me.
But these are for you.
Thank you.
To take with you. And I have one last question for you.
Yes, sir.
I like to ask all of our guests for a little piece of advice that they can share. The theme of Taking Flight is all about success, soaring high, making a difference. And so I like to ask for some words to live by, or in this case, words to soar by. So do you have a piece of advice that you could share with our viewers that might help them reach their goals?
Yes, sir, I do. So actually it comes with a little story. My sophomore year, I dropped out of high school because all the fun I was having, right, doing all the things that I'm not supposed to be doing. So I ended up dropping out of high school and getting my GED. From that point, my mindset was just to be a certain way, go out and have fun. Not the right mindset to have. So I went to go work at I went to a trade school, learned a trade to be a mechanic. Worked at Henna Chevrolet and Draeger Motor Company in Georgetown, both areas for about 3.5 years. Then I started working at Dell. In 1998, I started working at Dell. Yes. Didn't know much about computers. Knew how to type from typing class that I took in high school, and that's my freshman year. That's about it. So started working in the warehouse at Dell and just learning as much as I could from whoever would show me, whether they're working in an Excel sheet or some database, just picking up what I could. So throughout these past 21 years, I have learned so much from everybody. But wanting to learn was probably my biggest one. When my daughter was born, I said, okay, I have okay job. I can work 60, 70 hours a week and do okay. But do I really want that? No, I want to be able to work and still have time to spend with my family. And the only way to do that was for me to go back to school. So I started taking classes at ACC, was on the call it a long-term plan. So I was taking as many classes as I could off and on. Over the next, I think I started when I was 20, so I graduated with my bachelor's when I was in my mid-30s. So it took me that long just to go part-time to school, finish ACC, transfer to Texas State, and do all that. With all that said, my advice would be is no matter the mistakes that we make growing up, we're all going to make mistakes. don't let those mistakes kind of dictate who we are going to be. Take the learnings that we had from family members or from teachers, and work hard to be the person that you want to be. It's not going to be easy, but just hard work will get you there.
And you're a perfect example of how determination and perseverance pay off.
Yes, sir.
Sticking with it.
Yeah,
Yes.
stuck with it.
Yeah.
But it was a long road, and like I mentioned, it's not easy, but it can be done.
It can be done.
Yes, sir.
Yes. Well, thank you. That is excellent advice. Appreciate you sharing
sir.
that
You're
with
welcome.
us. And Adam, thank you so much for being on Taking Flight today. This really is such an incredible story, and we appreciate you being here to share this with us today.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. It's a different venue from being out on the basketball court sharing my story. But if it can, like last time, it was one person raised their hand and asked a question. That is why I do it, because we can relate, and if I can help that one person out, that's my goal.
That's
Yep.
right. That's right.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Awesome.
Well, thank you
Yes,
very
sir.
much.
Thank you.
And thank you for joining us for this episode of Taking Flight. We'll see you next time.
One of the most rewarding memories I have as a counselor at Taylor Middle School is meeting Adam Sanchez. If I remember right, the day after his grandfather picked him up from the bus station, they enrolled him in school. They didn't waste any time. And he came in, and when I was just visiting with him and asking him where he had gone to school last and everything, he told me his story of how he had escaped. And I just was amazed and really overwhelmed. And I said, Adam, how did you manage to get by all of the people and them not ask? I said, did anybody ask you a question? And he said, no, ma'am. And I said, how did they not? And he smiled that smile that Adam still has. And he said, I just acted like I was supposed to be there. And I truly feel that there was protection around him, and he was being taken care of. When he started to classes, it was evident right away that he was very smart, and we put him in enriched classes, and the teachers really had no idea what he had gone through or what he was still going through. And he always had that smile. He was always positive, but what I remember is his main goal was getting his sister to safety. And we had a really good relationship, but as far as I know, he might have shared with some friends, but he was so positive, and really no one would have known the burden that he had on his 11-year-old shoulders. And that has always been so moving to me.
So I remember the day Adam came back, or his first day at school. We were in middle school, 6th grade, and I remember him because we bumped into each other in the hallway, and he was wearing like a long sleeve denim shirt, denim jeans, and brown boots. Don't tell me why he stood out to me. Don't tell me why I remember that. But that was the first time I encountered Adam. Shortly after that, I think the news article came out of him when the picture was when he was at the airport and he was getting picked up. And I remember getting home from school and laying down in my parents' living room, had the paper out, and I was reading it, and I read the whole article, and I just felt something like, I don't know, like amazed by his story, amazed by him. And I remember calling my cousin Christina on the phone, and I said, hey, did you see that article about that boy that just came back from Mexico? And she was like, no, I haven't read it yet. And I said, well, read it. It's in the paper. I was like, I read the whole article. I said, and for some reason, I know, I said, I'm going to marry him. And she started laughing, and she was like, what? And I said, I'm going to marry him. I was like, I don't know why. I said, but I'm going to marry him. And she just laughed, and when we got married, I told the story about how I called her and told her, and yeah, yesterday we celebrated our 20-year anniversary. So I did marry him.
As the years went on, I lost kind of touch with him, and then a few years later, when I sponsored Ducks Against Drugs at middle school, at the new middle school, there was a check that would come periodically from Dell, you know, where they donate to different causes, where the employees can donate to their favorite causes. And it said Adam Sanchez. And so I went to our school secretary and I said, "Is this the Adam Sanchez?" And she said, "It is." And so we reconnected then. He has such a love for Taylor. He is so generous with his story to tell it and to try to help young people. And he was the perfect person to be a mentor. And I encouraged him to do that when he was there. And he is a mentor. And then one of the most rewarding things was a few years ago, I got an invitation in the mail to his college graduation and then to his graduation party. And I think that probably was one of the most rewarding things I've experienced in education, to continue to have that relationship and to see how he has been successful and how much he cares about other people and is willing to help them.
I'm very proud of him. Not everybody could do the life that he's done, having been through what he went through. And that's what kind of just amazes me about him, is instead of using his story and his experiences as a crutch, is what he says, he uses it to make his life better. He never uses like, well, I went through this when I was younger, and so I can act this certain way. He always says, you know, I wouldn't change anything that happened to me. He goes, because it made me who I am today. And to me, for him to say that, and then for him to just be able to be who he is and be the kind of person he is, it's just, I'm so proud of him. I mean, we have a little joke that, you know, he's almost done getting his master's degree, and there was a time in his life when he did drop out of school, and I did talk him into getting his GED, because if it was up to him, he would have not. But he was able to get his associates, he got his bachelor's, and now he's getting his master's, and he has that in him, because he always says, I don't want my kids to ever have to go through anything that I went through. And so he uses that, his experience, he uses that to try to make his life better and to try to make his kids' life better and our life better. And that's why he shares his story, is because he always says, if I can help one person, if I, you know, and he mentors, and he's like, if I can help one kid or one child, you know, he goes, it's worth it. He goes, it's worth it. He goes, I don't know why I had to go through what I went through. He was like, but I have to like tell my story, share my story, because if it helps somebody, then it's worth it. And that's my baby.